The table notification types, you can go into it through the menu path when you're in notification types to define the mapping, but you can also go into it through table edit. Now, the table is v_tq80_m, and by the way, if you're looking for this kind of thing inside the configuration in that huge list in SPRO, you can also do search, Control F or the magnifying glass, like the binoculars. You can search for keywords. So if I search for a notification type and hit the enter key, it brings up a hit list, this little hit list here, and if you double click on the option that you want it takes you right away into the tree structure and opens everything and highlights what it found, in this case notification type. So then I can go into make my changes that I want to without having to remember where that was in the tree structure. So that's an example of the search. If I'm looking for defining notifications, I go Control F, type that in, hit enter. I find inside what area I want to work. In this case, the defining notification types in the area of notifications. So sometimes you'd be going into cross application, sometimes your specific module, like plant maintenance, and you simply double click and it takes you to that topic. Like here. So if I open up, I can, in this list of notification type configurations, I can edit notification types, create new ones, and also copy. That's the third button, is to copy an existing one. So all the parameters that are in there also get copied. Because a notification type has a lot of details in the when you're creating or editing a notification type. So it has a description, the category, the origin, reference time, the default catalog profile is assigned to it, which we'll talk about later. Basically, the catalog profile would be like the you check that, then as soon as you go to create a notification, the notification number is assigned. So if you back out, like you cancel, that number is actually used up. So typically that's not checked. Most companies, they only upon save do they actually take a notification number. And that number range is defined also in configuration. We'll see how to do that, how to define number range to notification type, as well as how to create them. So in this case, the drop down for notification reference is these options: malfunction start, notification receipt, malfunction end. These have to do with that reference time option. Now the table I mentioned earlier, that v_tq80_m, you can actually edit that directly with a T-code SM30. So from the menu or /n, you can go to SM30, type in or paste in that table name. And by the way, when you're in any field, if you want to see if that drop down or field has a table, when you hit F1 and you hit the hammer wrench icon, you can see that if it has a table name or code, and you might be able to go directly into that table. So when you put that table reference number here and you hit maintain, it opens up in change mode to make modifications directly in the table, like to add a new entry, to copy an existing entry, or to change the description of an entry in that table. Notification category, that's another table which would list all the categories of notifications. So the one that I was looking at were the plant maintenance ones, so that's category number 1. So again, you can add new entries or copy an existing one. So once you double click on a row, it'll take you into this screen, the notification type details, where you can set the object category, which is for tasks in the notification. You can set the or the class type, which is set 015, which if you look at the drop down, and notif cat is the description of it. So it's plant maintenance for this example. So we went through a table view, but you can also go to notification configurations through the menu. Like this menu shows the full menu from across application components into notification, creation, types, and so on. The screenshot shows M1, but regardless, it basically shows you the catalog profile that is set to that notification type. And the catalog profile basically is the all the damage codes, cause codes, and so on, which we'll go into some detail later. So the general one that's set to this type of notification means if the equipment or function location doesn't have any specific catalog profile, it'll bring up the generic ones for things like problems, causes, tasks, and so on. And so here's where you define which of those codes you're connecting to based on D, C, and each of those has a drop down of options. So the catalog table you can actually edit in, but the table code is V_TQ80_C, and you can open that in SM30. You can also go through the transaction code that's listed on the slide. So when you go into that transaction, then you select the first notification type, you select that row, and you double click on the folder. This example, I went into catalogs, and the catalogs one that's marked in yellow, and it brings up the catalog profile assigned to it. So go into an overview of the notification types. So when you're on that menu option, if you click the notes button with the little eyeglasses, it'll bring up this pop-up, the performance assistant. So whenever you're first using any transaction, it's really good to read through those. So when you go into the overview part, you need to first select the row that you want to work with. In this case, I'm selecting the notification type M1. And you select the row, and then you double click on the folder of what details you want to look at. In this case, I went into screen areas. So that's the first one there. And in the screen areas of a notification, you can define what you want to see as the screen type header. In this case, I've set it to header maintenance notification, and also the screen type object you want to see. And I chose function location, equipment, and assembly, those common fields that we have typically on the header of the notification. And you notice that's for PM, for plant maintenance. For customer service, they might want different things to show up on their notification. They might want the header for service notifications instead of maintenance notifications. So the screen structure, the next tab, will list the screen structures that you can modify. In this case, it's showing actually all the ones that have been created for the M1. So in the walkthrough, we'll see how to actually go into the create notification tabs, whether you're using it for PM or customer service. So you use the toggles to navigate if there's multiple ones already created. To pick which one you want to edit, and there's those little green toggles on the top of the screen. And whenever you create a tab page, if you want it to actually show up as a tab, not just adding fields to an existing tab, then you have to use that checkbox where it says tab highlighted in red. So the default description will come in based on what tab you're actually creating. In this case, say looking at tab 10/tab 01. So the description will come in by default, but if you want to change that, you can type in what you want the tab description to show up as in the tab header box. If you want an icon also to show up on that tab, you can pick an icon. So the objects in the screen area that you want to see, there is a little check boxes that you can pick, like those little boxes that you can pick each drop downs and pick what kind of objects you want to see on the screen. In this case, it shows in the left-hand side the list of objects that are predefined that you can add to that sheet tab. In the walkthrough, you'll see how to do this. On the bottom of the slide, just mentioned the table that is where this data is stored. This slide, notification blocks, just shows you some examples of what those objects are pre-configured to look like. So if you say on a tab you want to see reference object, that's what it would look like. Responsible, subject, long text, and so on. So the other tabs, like the second tab that was already created, was a tab 10/tab 02, and we're giving it a custom tab header description as reference object. So there's a new entry button that you can click on if you want to create a new tab and start from scratch. So if you leave activity category blank, that means that the tab will show up in all views, whether it's create, change, or display, like IW21, 22, or 23. If you specify H, then it'll only show up in create mode and add mode. V would mean only in change mode, and A would be only in display mode. By blank means all three. It'll show up all the time. Once you specify that, you can't change it, so you'd have to delete the tab and recreate it by maybe copying it first. So there is a selection drop-down in the tab to pick what tab you're building, and like I mentioned, the tab header is optional text. If you leave it blank, it'll take in the default description. The view on the bottom of the screen on this slide is what the notification would look like. In this case, if the reference object tab being created. So it's defined the screen areas, start end dates, that's showing up that block on top, and then the partner overview screen table is in the bottom. That would be very useful for things like, the partner overview would be like who it's sold to, who it's shipped to, that kind of thing. So for customer service or objects that are owned by another company, you might need to have partner fields. Malfunction tab, so that's the predefined tab 10/tab 05, and it again defaults the description of malfunction, and without any screen fields, it'll show up the start date, end date, and breakdown indicator as standard. The items tab is 10/tab 10. Which is, again, it defaults to items, and what it looks like on a notification is on the bottom of the slide. It's the item, causes, task, and activities by default. The next option we'll control is the format long text. So you just double click on that folder, and the two checkboxes are commonly checked are the log line and no text change. Log line basically means that when the person adds any text inside the long text field on a notification, it logs the username, the date, and the time when they wrote it. And the second button, the no text change, means after you've saved a notification, anything typed in long text is etched in stone. It's uneditable. You can add to the bottom of it, like you can append to it, but you can't modify it. And the last section is usually left blank, but I'll just explain it briefly. The formatting of long text lines, that's the first option there is format key, and it's defined in the help and in styles and forms. And just hit the F1 key for help when you're in that field, and it'll give you a bit more information. Line by line basically forces formatting to all lines if that's checked, instead of just the formatting to the first line. Define transaction start values. So in specific notification types, you may want them to be, say your users 90% of the time are creating M1s. Then if you want that 90% of the time, you can have that as a start value. And also what notification processing screen is accessed automatically when the user goes into that notification. In the MELD, it just basically means notification header, and that's what's most commonly assigned. Initial screen gives option also to select the type and reference, so that if you bypass that initial screen, then it'll take you right into the form, and you won't be able to select the type or copy reference an existing notification. Notification types to order types is where you can do mapping. So by default, when someone turns a notification type, say M1, into a work order, you can have it so it automatically defaults as a PMO1. So some companies do that. They map every notification type to a different work order type, just so they keep them very, very separate in their business process. Some companies don't bother doing this mapping, or they map them all to generally PM01, and then the user, of course, can change that, or the planner. So to actually make that mapping, you can do it in a table view with the SM30. There's a T-code also to take you into that. And in SPRO, you can follow through the menus, and you can find that in the notification path. So the example below, that screenshot, basically just shows that if someone chose PMO, make a notification of type M2, it defaults order type PM02. Of course, the user then has a drop-down choice to modify that upon creating the work order. Object information configuration is, you can get to it through the transaction code OIMD. Basically what this, or the menu path is shown here, but basically it's the object pop-up that you get when you create a notification or order. And if it's set automatically, that's the little box on the top right-hand corner there, if it's set automatic. Now, you can have different settings, of course, for different areas in SAP, like for plant maintenance, customer service, and so on. And you just click on the new entry or copy an existing entry to create a new object info parameter. So when you're looking at an equipment, for instance, there's an I button that will bring up this object information, but you can have it automatic with the automatically checkbox here checked. When the person creates an order or notification, it'll automatically bring up the pop-up. So the configuration that's possible, first of all, is what statistics do you want to see? The last 365 days. That's the most common setting that companies use. They want to see a year in the life, the statistics, a year in the life of that equipment. All the other numbers in this configuration are threshold values. So if you, during that time period of 365 days, if there's one breakdown already there, you're going to see a yellow lightning bolt next to it. And so the threshold values that you put in there will trigger a yellow lightning bolt based on if that threshold is breached. And processing days, completed notifications during that time period is greater than 8, or completed orders greater than 8. And the next area is notification selection and automatic display. So this is when they actually want to make a report from that pop-up screen. What do you want to have the defaults to be set to? So do you want the checkboxes all to be selected for seeing all historical, completed, and outstanding notifications? Then all three of these boxes would be checked. And what date range do you want by default in that screen? In this case, it's set to 7 days. Of course, the user can change that if they want to. So this is an example of the results of that configuration. So if you don't set it to be automatic, then you won't get these pop-ups. You'd have to hit the I button to get a pop-up. Now, if you don't put any threshold or if you don't put any values in, then you won't get the breakdown reporting. Like you won't get the reported break, it'll just show up blank. So the screen on the left is no threshold values put in at all. On the screen on the right is some threshold values put in. So you'll see how many breakdowns are reported. Notifications created is 4, and you see the yellow lightning bolts because it breached the threshold. So it shows you the most recent 3 notifications, and of course users can double click to go look at them, and the most recent open work order. These buttons, the notification and order button, those will bring up the reports. And that report, you would see the checkboxes automatically checked. Like you see here, report shows all statuses, those all checked, and the date range on that report would show the date range design. Like if you ask for 7 days, it'll show you the 7-day date range by default.